Welcome to Superhuman Selling. Today's conversation is a little bit different and perhaps one of the most important that we have ever had on the podcast. I'm joined by neuroscientist, storyteller, and caregiver advocate Emilia Ferreira, whose work explores the intersection of neurobiology, caregiving, and radical acceptance. You're going to hear a little bit more of her story today, but through caring for her daughter with cerebral palsy, there are cherished life lessons that Emilia has observed. Simple and profound things rooted in neuroscience, like how caring, immersion, and trust can transform how we learn and how we love. And while these lessons have guided Emilia in caring for her daughter, they're also lessons that I think all of us can take back into our own lives to grow as sales professionals, leaders, high performers, and as caregivers as well. Because in one way or another, we're all caregivers. Maybe you're a parent, maybe you're supporting a parent or a grandparent, maybe you're leading a team, your children, or you're supporting clients, right? Or you're someone who's pouring into the people you love on a regular basis. And so today we're diving into how care literally changes the brain, how immersion can transform our neural patterns, and how radical acceptance can become a daily biohack for more joy, clarity, and connection. Emilia, welcome to the show. I am so excited and grateful to have you here today.
Wow, what an amazing introduction. Thank you so much. It was so lovely. You really capture well the work of caring, and like caring also it can be to your own project. So I'm very excited, right? You mentioned caring for a parent, caring for a family, caring for your child, but why not care for your own project?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm excited to get into the neuroscience aspect of this as well. And I think it's something that our community is craving. I think that people are craving more information. We just did a really cool training for one of our communities, the 10K Club last week on the neuroscience of abundance. And I think that when we understand what's happening in our brains when we're caught up in fears or limiting beliefs or inaction. And we actually understand the neuroscience behind how to rewire our brains for what we want. We're so much more empowered to
Yeah.
create the life, the business that we desire. And so I know you're going to bring a lot of insight and clarity to the show today. And I'd love to start a little bit with how you got into this work. So we were chatting before we hit record, and I was just remarking on your Instagram, Raising Ona, and just your behind the scenes of working with your daughter and how your work has impacted her and how she impacts you. Like it's incredibly moving and profound. And I'd love if you could share a little bit about that backstory for our listeners who may not yet be familiar with how you got into the work you do today.
Yes. So as the work as a neuroscientist really started with understanding how many doctors were approaching the brain of my daughter.
Mm.
She doesn't have the motor cortex of her brain. And even before she was born, as a storyteller, I had been working in many projects that is related to the brain. And so it was almost like a combination with what I was before and the challenge that was in front of me at that moment, in which I was like, there is no answer. Like, where is the answer? Because at that point, everybody, all the doctors that I was working with to understand how to wire, what do I need to do with my daughter's brain? They were really trying to prove a point or a point in their research, right? Which is not, was not for me. So I'm like, okay, so I need to know this. I need to learn this. And therefore, I had to really immerse myself into trying to grasp the reality that I was living that was only mine. So that was my journey into going back to doing my postgrad in neuroscience.
Wow. Wow. And so there's so many applications to our conversation today for both caretaking, as we talk about for ourselves, for a project, for a loved one, as well as how we grow and expand our business. And I think what I'd love to start with is the neuroscience of care. And I think
Mhm.
that for myself, I would relate to being a high achiever, a driven woman, a woman who certainly has hustled and grinded her way to where she was previously. And I don't espouse that anymore. I don't believe that that's actually the way to quantum leap or to get to where we wanna go, but that's a lot of what I did in the past. And, the concept of caring for
Mhm.
myself, taking time to take it, like, it just wasn't in my vocabulary, and it's something that still sometimes I'll find resistance if I'm in a we get caught up in loops where we're like, "Oh, we gotta push harder or work harder or hustle harder." And I'd love if you could share a little bit of the neuroscience of care. Why does it matter? And if someone's listening and maybe they're a high achiever and they think, "Oh, well, if I want to achieve greater results in my life, I just need to push more. I just need to take more action. I just need to grind more."
Yep.
How do we need to think differently about this? And why does this matter to our lives and
Yeah.
our businesses?
Such a great question. And I think the ending, what you mentioned, is so important. What do we need to think differently? Because there's two ways that we can approach care, which is the traditional, right? That we have been imprinted and conditioned to perceive reality. So that is in your default mode network, it's who you are, it's your sense of self, it's how you are going to predict what's going to happen next, because basically, we all, independently of our background, are predicting based on past experiences. And your past experiences, many times, are not who you want to be, right? So basically, they are kind of like creating a personality that maybe it's not you, maybe it's not your desire, maybe not it's not your dream. So that is on your default mode network. And your default mode network is directly connected to your perceptions of strong emotions. Okay, your primitive brains, like, so if you have your printing and conditioning certain types of experiences that make you predict the future as risky, as um, not safe, you are not going to have the opportunity, the realistic opportunity to change that pattern. Yeah. So then there's a different way of thinking, which is your brain is not only who you believe you are, there's more to you. Actually, 90% of how you are performing, how you are showing up in the world, it's not coming from your brain. It's coming from the combination of your brain and your body, right? So once you start awakening those abilities, or even bring, or even having the clarity, the understanding that your default mode is basically predicting based on bias and stereotypes. You're like, okay, so does this bias and your stereotype are serving me now to the person I am, right? So you're like, you need to make the decision, yes or no. So once you say, well, no, perhaps there's more, you are creating the opportunity to listen to different parts of your body. So in your heart, you have uh, 40,000 independent neurons that think independent of the brain. And your gut, you have 50 million that is also independent of the brain. What I'm trying to say is 90% of what you are, how you are perceiving your reality, it's not, it's a, it's like, it's connected. If, so it can have a bigger potential if you access that network,
Hmm.
right? And so
Yeah.
once you, and there are tricks for you to get into that mode, which is what we call immersion.
Okay.
It was too complicated, or
No, it's brilliant. And so here's how I'm understanding it, and I'd love for you to clarify if this is true or not. So from what you're sharing, like, let's say that someone wants to invest in themselves. Maybe they want to invest in themselves in coaching, or they want to go out and do something that maybe feel like their intuition is telling them, yes, there's a desire, there's a knowing, there's a pull to do this thing. And we all know what that feels like. There's something, an opportunity that we've all had to move forward on something that feels exciting, expansive. And there can be an inner drive and knowing that says yes, but then in our brain, fear kicks in,
yeah,
right? And
it's
my
like to block you.
yeah, and so that's the default mode, is that right? So that's the, and it's based on past experiences. Maybe I put myself out there before and I got rejected, or
Mm.
maybe I invested money in this way and I didn't feel like it returned. So now that my brain is telling me, "Oh, don't do this," because this past thing happened. But what you're saying, Emilia, is that, well, there's also, we have knowing within our heart and our gut that's different and independent than the brain. And that could be maybe why sometimes we feel like we're at a crossroads or there's inner conflict when we want to move forward on things. Did I get that right in my very layperson translation?
Class A, class A to you. And then I'm just gonna add one interesting aspect of when you are using this alternative mechanism of showing up with your reality is that that's where you have synchronization in parts of your brain that would not be possible if you were in your default mode, which is your frontal cortex is now connected to your primitive brain, creating this ability to think 5 minutes into the future. That's where you can create. That's when, like who, like for example, I have my bike. Who created, how they created that? It cannot be through the default mode because through their past experience, that didn't exist. So you
Mm.
really to connect to a part of you that can perceive more than your past reality. It's really interesting because it's almost magic, but it is reality. Is, and then just bring it back to my daughter. She does not have the motor cortex. She walks, she speaks 5 languages,
Mm.
and she's a poet, and she's a singer. She plays the piano. And so this is all by uh, creating the state for her to immerse, which we know is a neurologic state that puts you in this alternative state of heightened frontal cortex activity.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about what that looks like. So this concept of immersion and how we can leverage it. What does that look like and how do we do it?
Yeah, that's super fun because that's very feminine actually.
Right.
Um, the immersion what creates this state that you can enter in, which a lot of people calls flow, but
Mm.
it's also the same thing as immersion. The way you can actually enter is exciting certain neurotransmitters and hormones in your body, and my favorite one is oxytocin because it's innate. It's a neurotransmitter that it's evolutionary. So this oxytocin started in us around 5,000 years ago, and that's how it made us connect. That's how it made us trust. It's whenever you're breastfeeding, you got that. Whenever you're caring for your child, you have tons of that in your body. It's really chemistry. It's really what's happening before your brain makes decision. So if you're increasing oxytocin on your system, means that you are decreasing your default mode and you are flushing your body with the possibility of trust.
Ah.
And when you trust, you melt the boundaries of fear, bias, and stereotype because you're comfortable with the unknown. And that's when creativity really picks in.
Interesting. So one of the concepts that we talk a lot about in our community is this concept of quantum leaping.
So,
I know. Which is it's fun, and some of my personal backstory is I was stuck at the same income level for over 10 years. No matter how hard I worked, I always felt like I was bumping up against a threshold, and things felt hard, and I felt like I had to hustle and grind, but I always felt like I was capped. And then when I learned some of what we teach in the community, I was able to 10x in 6 weeks and really expand. But I remember the person who I needed to become in that experience had a very different relationship with trust, made a lot of decisions based on trust and on faith that the old version me wouldn't have done, and had to overcome a lot of the fears of investing in herself, the fears of putting herself out there. And so one of the things, and I want to get your take on this, Amelia, one of the things that I'll often say, and I do my best to remember myself, although it's not a perfect science because the brain can go and tell you lots of stories and make you feel, certainly make you feel afraid of taking action. But in general, what I do for myself and what I teach my clients to do is look, don't, as much as you can, don't listen to your thoughts when you're in a negative emotional state, when you're in fear, when you're in contraction, because it's not going to get you to where you want to go. It's not going to move you to your future. Is that based on what you're saying here, I'm curious,
Yeah.
what's your take on that? And does that align with your research and what you're seeing?
It does. But I think for you to really do this leap in quantum, um, emotions are part of our human experience.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's part of us, it's part of our body, it's part of us. I think what's interesting now to start opening the dialogue is what happens when you excite those neurons
Yeah.
together with your brain. So instead of talking about, okay, I'm afraid of doing this, it's there. It's always going to be there. However, there's more to you. There's more to what you can access.
Yeah.
And you can do that through stimulating the neurons in your heart, the neurons in your gut, the neurons in your brain, which create this super intelligent network.
Mm.
And so, independent of your imprinting, your conditioning, because that goes beyond, that surpass, that overrides what fear is going to cause to you.
Yes.
So, I agree, but your time should be spent on what more
Mm.
about this I can create like you experience fast, you know, while my body is processing all the emotions that is coming, this deep knowing, this deep intelligence, this deep intuition, what is that giving me so I can create?
Mm, mhm, and
So
yeah, go ahead.
it's basically thinking differently
Yeah, yeah,
because
and
there
that
is a
go ahead, it's fair, go ahead.
I get super excited about this topic because it's all about shifting perspective. You know, it's like we already know all of this. What we don't know.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to tap that with because our brains, we know very little about our brain.
Mm.
Very little. And and so combining that with the heart and the gut, you're using your whole body. You're getting into your subconscious, which is there, which is who you are too.
Yes. Yeah. I'm excited about the how of that, so I'll have you speak to that in a minute, and it's interesting, so when you talk about that super intelligence, right, when we can see beyond our current circumstances and we're in an energy of trust, that it seems like that's the place where if we can get ourselves there and then make decisions from that place and act
Yeah.
from that place, that's how we're gonna quantum leap. Is that fair to say? That's how we're gonna have a different experience. That's how we're gonna attract more of the things that we want into our lives, right? Um, so how do we do that? I think that's all they passionate everyone's gonna wanna know now, yeah.
And I actually will gifting a guide to your community that I'm gonna give 7 different ways for you to enter that state. And
Mhm.
that state also gives you around 30 minutes after.
Oh.
So you the flush, this the chemistry of your body, brain together with the electricity that you are creating through the hard electric magnetic field. So think like this. The gut is where you feel. The heart is how you is sending information to everything, and the brain is acting.
Mm.
So we are creating this alignment, this synchronization for you to act. And usually, if we're doing with oxytocin, it's going to last around 30 minutes. But if you do with your heart, it's going to last around 3 minutes. So the more you, oh, and then just before I go on and what do you actually do, one thing that is interesting about this process is that in general, how we create the world around us is through repetition,
Mm.
right? And so has this thing that calls LTP, which is your ability to create the preconditioning for you to continue doing the same thing over and over. Because remember, from the inside out, all it's chemistry.
Right.
So the perception of reality from the body perspective, it's chemical.
Mm.
Yeah. So I am seeing you, you see me. But whenever it goes inwards, then it becomes chemistry,
Interesting.
right? It's so cool. It's like now, how do we modulate our chemistry in order to experience? All right. So let's go on the what to do's.
Yeah.
Um, it's so funny because it's more simple than you would think. One, if you want to really connect or awaken the neurons of the heart, you need to use your breath. You need to use your breathing. But together with your breathing, you need to sustain. And that's the key. It's different than meditation, it's different than everything that we do. This is like change the chemistry of your body. You need to induce a emotion that is positive to you. Compassion. I like to do compassion. Why? Because compassion lights in our brain a part of that that's also creates your ability to go get it. So it's like it's a combination with dopamine and serotonin to get a lightening on your frontal cortex. When you do empathy, when I feel what you feel, lightens the location in your brain that makes us feel pain. So if I see you, you are in pain, and I am empathetic with you, then I'm also going to feel pain, which is going to happen. You're going to increase cortisol in your body, and next thing you know, you're going to kind of little by little be like, maybe it's just too far away. Maybe I cannot really do this. Maybe I cannot really help this person, right? And remember, you can also feel empathy to your project. So if we do compassion, it creates this dopamine. This like, I will do that for you because it makes me feel good. It's
Interesting.
like it's a mirror of a reality inside your body. Um, so why do I say that? Because positive emotion increases your capacity to feel compassion.
Mm.
From the body perspective and from the inside out, how the body experience um, positive or negative emotions are not really important to how you experience the reality. Meaning, if you're not feeling happy, the body, or if you're not perceiving happiness, the body is not going to know from the inside out if that's true or not.
Mm.
Yeah? Do you follow me?
Mhm.
So it's like you need to increase the sensation of something that is positive, just trigger memory or create something that, or your own business, right? Create that business. Think about that business, what you're serving with that business, what that business is giving to you, or something that makes you feel good,
Mm.
right? And then if you sustain, and that's a difficult part because people think that it's easy to sustain 3 minutes of positive emotion, but it's not. You need to practice
Long time.
together with the breath. You just by doing that, you have create this synchronization of the brain with your heart, awakening the neurons of the heart that will give you this access that surpass your default mode network, which is your bias and your stereotype and what is holding you back from that leap that you talk about. So that's one. Holding for 3 minutes, slow the breath. You can be with your eyes open. This is not a meditation. This is an exercise to awaken the neurons of your heart. Okay. Now, when it comes to oxytocin, I love stories because the stories immerse you. And when you immerse, you have the combination of oxytocin plus dopamine flushing your body.
Mm.
So if you can create that state and then right after do your work or your process of creating, you will see that things are going to flow more. So look for a short book, a short poem that will induce that emotional state. Funny, right? All of those hacks are directly connected to how the body experience emotion.
Mm. Mhm. Mhm.
So it's really tricking the body to create chemistry that gives you the precondition to create based on of flexibility, of your body being connected beyond the conditioning, the imprinting. It's good to have that because it kept you safe all the way here, but we want to thrive. We don't want anymore to survive.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, this is so fascinating, and I wanna, get your input on some of how I think about it, and again, it's a much more layperson viewpoint, so I'm curious to hear your perspective on this, but,
Mhm.
um Joe Dispenza talks about this in his work too, of a lot of people wait to have an experience outside of them to feel a certain feeling. And we live, that's kind of, he calls it the 3D model of reality, right? Where I'll feel abundant when I have a certain amount of money in the bank. I'll feel grateful when this thing happens to me. And what I'm hearing you say is that to be real creators in our lives, we have to learn to call up the emotion on demand and get ourselves in that state first.
Yeah.
And then from what I understand, we can't think beyond the level of our emotional state. So if I want to create results in my business that feel like abundance, I need to get myself into a state of feeling grateful or feeling abundant first. From that place, my brain is going to have different thoughts of different actions I can take, different things I can do that would actually help draw that to me and have that be my experience. But it's remembering that I'm the creator of my reality. I've got to create that feeling state first. And then from that place, I'll attract and draw in different results. So is that what you're saying? Am I saying that right? Kind of based on your understanding as well?
Yep, absolutely. The default mode network is a beautiful um way to keep us safe in this world, right?
Mm.
But whenever you are creating the experiences that you had, you are in the brain state that was given to you, right? So when you say, I want to create my experience, I wanted to do that, you need to be able to switch that state to a place of who I am, not
Mhm.
who I was conditioned to be. That's why I'm going back to that over and over, because it's just this clarity of saying, am I desiring first of all, it's very important to really connect and know what you really want,
Yeah.
right? Because many times you are wanting something that's not you.
Mm.
And I think that's so important in businesses, in projects. It's like, who am I? Right? In terms of like, what am I, how am I going to serve? So that there is some info, there is any, this is all in electricity. It's very interesting because it's not actually a thought that happens. It's just synchronizations, right? That happens. So it's kind of like complex, but it's beautiful at the same time. Um, so when it comes to creating, it's very important for us to say it, right? Is this what I want to do? Because once you start asking that question, you start inquiring parts of you that is beyond the conditioning, right? And then going back to what you refer as to from Dr. Joe Dispenza, this idea of it already happened. So if it's you, then it happened.
Mm.
Right. But if it's not, if it's only based on conditioning and stereotyped, it's like it's it's going to happen? Not sure, because we're not sure if this is you or not. So from biology, from your physiology perspective and how you are accomplishing things, this idea of experiencing fast is because you really are.
Yeah. Wow.
Right? So then you connect, then you synchronize different parts of your brain that will create that experience based on synchronization, based on create. It's not creating the reality, because then it becomes too subjective, right? Like I always like to bring up like hardcore science, because
Mhm.
it's important to put in a place that is doable.
Yeah.
Right, because it's so hard, this whole thing of like, oh, let me create, let me manifest. So actually, the whole idea of awakening, just inciting this emotion, it's a lot of the method that people do when they are manifesting.
Mm.
They think with manifesting, if you're using words, you're going through a process that you don't know for sure if it is conditioning or not, if it had been conditioned or not. So for you and your community, I would really inspire and invite people to go into the silence and their unconscious, do the exercise of awakening, creating that synchronization, and then acting.
Ah, yeah. Yes. Well, and you said something a few minutes ago that I think is one of the most important things that, you've said today, and you've said a lot that's important, but it's who I am versus who I was conditioned to be.
Yeah.
And I think that that is the work,
Yeah.
and that's the piece that we get to remember, and the core message in our brand and in our community is to trust yourself,
Yeah.
because I think so many of us, and if we're not conscious to it, we're not aware, but we've been conditioned to think that we are so much smaller than we really are, so much more limited than we really are, and yet I find that most people in our community, most of our listeners, many of my clients, they're in a place where they're ready to really trust themselves of, "Who did I really come here on the planet to be? What is the fullest expression of me?" And there's a great deal of exciting things that happen when we start pursuing that, but it requires that awareness of all of the things I've been conditioned to think I am, they're not actually true. They're not really me. And that great inquiry of who am I really, it,
Yeah.
it kicks off an exciting adventure. So, um, this is phenomenal. I want to talk to you forever about that.
Uh, yeah.
I have so much more. I want to.
I just have one more thing to say that is so important
Yeah.
about finding your voice and who you are. In my case, I was lucky because I had a daughter that has cerebral palsy.
Yeah.
And because of that, I could not compare myself to any other mother. I could not get the tips that the other mother was saying about, oh, how do you breastfeed? How do you do that? It's like, it doesn't apply to me. So I had to go in and figure out what type of mother I am. How am I going to mother this being? And I think this happens with my own work. And, with everybody's like, one of the big questions when you entice who am I, it really needs to carry that truth that who I am being compared, who am I comparing myself to?
Yeah. Yes.
Because really that is the bridge between how you're going to accomplish what our way of serving to who you are is like, who am I comparing myself?
Yeah.
If there is a comparison, there's no way that you are going to connect to that ability to experience who you are.
Wow. 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 This was brilliant. Like I said, I wish I had hours with you because I wanna go so much deeper with you here, but I'm so grateful. Thank you for the wisdom you shared. I know this is just the tip of the iceberg, so we will link in the show notes the toolkit. You mentioned those, I think it was 7 ways that we can activate.
Yeah, that you can enter in this state of immersion to create this synchronization, so you can go on and really create out of this higher intelligence that lives in you.
Amazing, amazing. And then, Emilia, for those who wanna connect with you further, whether it's on your social media, your website, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you from here?
Oh, I write a newsletter every week that I expand the neuroscience of motherhood. And again, mother is not about mothering our child, but it's mothering our projects, whatever you're mothering, whatever you're creating. And so I will give you that link. It's on my website, raisinghonor.com, but I will give you that link so you can share with your community as well.
Thank you so much for this. This was deeply profound, impactful, and important, I think, not just for us personally, but also to know for those we're raising again, whether it's a team, clients, a business, a project, our children, our parents, whoever we're supporting. So I'm so grateful to you. I'm grateful that you were here. I'd love to have you back or get you maybe speaking in front of my mastermind at some point because I think that this is really important, powerful work that we need to know and that we need to go deeper into. So thank you again for your generosity and the
You
time of
so
what you shared.
much.
Yeah.
I love the work you do. I think we women need to be on the forefront of creating culture. That means creating our businesses. That's the way we are going to also impact what we want to see in the future. We are creators of that, and I'm so grateful that you are being part of that bridge so women can really go on and feel the confidence that they need to create what they want to serve. And by the way, we definitely should do a masterclass together, because creating that immersion in a team in person, it's magical. It's really magical what you can create after.
Yeah, I love it. Well, let's do it. Let's speak it into existence, and we'll see how it comes together. But I love that, and I agree, and I'm grateful. So, thank you
Thank you.
again.
Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
yes, absolutely. To you, my listener, oh my gosh, I mean, this is amazing. We will link all of Emilia's resources in the show notes. Please connect with her as well on social media. Let her know you came across her on the Superhuman Selling podcast, and support her work, because this really is important. I want to thank you as always for being a listener of the show. And I want to remind you as we close out to trust yourself on your path to success. Remember that your desires are green lights leading you and everyone around you to a brighter future. I'll see you on our next episode.